So I had a question, first one you and then second one behind you.
Gil and Valerie Morales, Tampa, Florida, a twin model, 82,000 miles.
What year?
05.
Oh,
Sorry, yeah,
05.
05 twin.
Oh,
05. Back to the muffler. What would you recommend, two questions, what would you recommend as a source for replacing those mufflers? And secondly, what type of service does that for you?
Okay, I can answer that because I made that muffler mistake. I went to a shop, he did not have the size, so forth. He says, but I have got this steel pack, which is similar to the old glass packs that we all kids grew up with. It sounded good and all this stuff, and the more you go with the louder they got. Well, the steel pack did fine, well and good for about a year, and finally the wife says, I've had it. So between 22 and 2400 RPM, those little V6 engines have a harmonic in there, and they will rattle. And you get over that, quiet down. She says, I've heard all I want to hear. I went to a mom and pop Joe Blow muffler shop that had a pretty good reputation, and he looked at it and said, I can take this one, it'll fit, and I can modify it because of the location of the outlet and the diameter of the outlet. So my end result is almost any good muffler shop can take any muffler of a comparable size and make it fit.
Yeah.
That's my answer to that.
I went to Brownwood Muffler Shop at Brownwood. The guy looked at it, he looked at the muffler, and he went over and looked at what he had in stock, and he picked one out. Okay, right length and everything, but for two things. One, the outlet was off to one side. The original is center in, center out.
Yep.
And this was center in, but it was offset out. And so he bent the pipe behind it, and because I asked him to, he did it all with clamps. Most of them was just welded in.
Yep.
Then you got problems later. But he was able to, the inlet was right, but the outlet was a little bit small, and he had a expander there. He put it in there, got it up the right size, and just slipped right on there.
Yeah.
It's $50.
The alignment by putting clamps and.
He just made it work, you know.
As opposed to welding one piece, because then there's probably.
Well, no, most places don't use clamps anymore. You go get a muffler, they're gonna cut out what's in there and weld in a new one. They're not gonna use any clamps at all. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, and he said that if people ask, he won't do welding, but he's just guilty of it in most cases because it's just faster.
But you asked them to clamp it. Yeah, that makes sense. Just as a second note to that, I had to replace the muffler on my generator, and I did go to a small muffler shop, and they just made one for me.
Yep.
Yep.
Made one that fit, put it back up, and it's been great.
Yep.
So similar answer.
When
Thank
mine went out on my first Rialta, I did the same thing because the muffler, the header, exhaust manifold, the flex pipe, and the muffler were each, this is in 2003, were $80 a piece. I said, I don't think so. So,
You know what they are now.
I don't even want to ask.
If
You don't want to know.
If you can find them. So you have any more?
It was more.
Do you have more questions?
No, that was
Okay.
it. It was just,
Back
I wanted to know
behind
where to get them
I
up.
want to ask a clarifying question. Did you say it was welded on, the new muffler?
Oh, what?
Was it?
most places will weld it on.
Yeah.
It was welded on?
Mine is not welded on.
You didn't
I
want
put
it-
clamps back on mine.
Didn't want it though?
Yeah.
No. I want it so I can take it out if I want to, so I can do the work. And I don't have to pay them to cut out the old one.
And I had, the last time I had something done, it was done at Meineke. As long as they have a lift that they can run your rig up on and then lift it, as long as they have clearance in there overhead. Meineke does good work up in New Hampshire.
See, I did mine on the ground.
Wow, there's no room under there.
No, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, I guess.
And speaking of the small refrigerator, this is per Norcold. On a little refrigerator, it is not advised, because of a reason I'll tell you, to run down the road on propane. Because of incomplete combustion, which will generate more carbon in the burner box, which
I do it all
creates
the time.
other
I
problems.
do it all the
So running down the road, you want to be on 12 volt, is what I always did.
Yep.
Or inverter.
I do too.
Or-
I would never not have.
I
one.
always run LP for the refrigerator because it does so much
Whoa,
more.
whoa,
than
whoa, whoa,
running
whoa,
off
you
the-
haven't conditioned it with what kind of refrigerator you've got.
What rig are you at?
What
You're
rig
an
are you
HD.
in?
You have a bigger 2002 HD.
Okay.
That's a
HD,
totally
you can do
different
it.
rig.
HD, you
Totally
can do
different
it.
fridge.
but
N300 is fine.
Not the little one.
3163, you don't
I
want
do it, I
propane
do
on the road.
QD, I've done it ever since I've
Well,
had it.
Well, you're not
6
supposed to,
years.
because like Jane said, it causes carbon in there, and it'll actually clog up the burner, so you get incomplete combustion, so it doesn't work as well.
And when it
you gotta
really-
take it out and clean it every.
And that's a whole nother problem, you gotta pull that refrigerator out.
And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and when you get
Put your
enough
fingers
carbon
up on the
buildup,
sheet metal.
you don't get an arc across the igniter, which doesn't generate a spark, which won't light your propane, and then you're really up the creek, because it ain't
Yeah,
gonna
It's
work.
always been hard to light, that's
There
why
you
I'm
go.
done. Once it gets lit, I'm done.
Yeah.
They had,
Doing it again.
they actually offered what they called it a high altitude kit.
Yeah.
Normally you got a vent on there about that big, and that's intake and exhaust.
That's one vent.
But they offered what they called a high altitude kit, so there's another vent the same size, and one was used for intake and one was used for exhaust. So it's better, but it still ain't great.
Yeah. Our first unit had the high altitude kit, our second unit did not.
99 QD, 108,000 or thereabouts. I have a noise irritation when I'm going down the road.
Where does it seem to come from?
Well, it sounds like the passenger window was open, but it isn't. So I've checked all around the gaskets that go around the door. They seem to be good and tight. I can't track down the source of that wind noise as you're going down the road.
You
Could be.
are certain that it is wind noise?
I don't know what else it would be.
I would suggest, you got about 100,000 on it, you said?
130.
I would suggest having you or someone drive it and be in the back
Another person.
and listen to your wheel bearings.
Listen to what?
Listen to your rear wheel bearings, listen to the back end.
Oh, I've already replaced those.
Oh,
I have a 02 QD, same thing, and I thought maybe it was not sealed up around some of those lights or
Well,
along the
possible too.
side seam.
And it can be inside the door. There's supposed to be a sheet of insulation in there to kind of keep that noise down and
Where is
everything.
this?
You don't get cold in.
Inside the door. panel.
Inside the door panel.
the side door.
But there's air that can actually come in around the handle.
The coach door or the
Coach door.
chassis door?
Cab doors.
The cab door.
In the front.
Volkswagen
Front door.
doors. The Volkswagen door.
The passenger door.
Okay, on the chassis, not the
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question for
But
you, what type of awning do you have on there? It's related.
What
Oh,
type
yeah.
of awning?
Fiamma, 12 foot.
45
Awnings can do it too.
Like covering little screw holes in there. So
That could
to
do
make
it?
a whistling noise. Or even just cover it with a t-shirt, drive down the road, if the noise goes away, there's your problem, and then look for,
I actually ran into somebody that had a weird
Repeat what he
noise,
said, please.
and it turned out to be the arms on their awning. They weren't flush up against the rig, they were out just a little bit, and it was creating a whistle in there.
Well, Fiamma, they fit up into the awning and that all gets folded up into the
Right.
case.
Now, our two rigs had different ways to mount the awning. One of the ways was to just put in a short bolt that went into the aluminum extrusion.
Okay?
The other way were long bolts that went all the way through. And those bolts were not sealed correctly.
Ah,
So it took me a while to figure that one out. But those bolts should be sealed correctly, so number one, you don't have wind noise. Number two, you don't have water intrusion.
and the long bolt is the better of the two.
It is another way of doing it, not necessarily better. It's just
Sealing is the question.
Sealing would have to be for both ways.
Okay.
You want to seal it for both ways because if you look at the side of the Rialta, you've got a seam
Yep.
about head high.
Right.
That is the bottom end of an aluminum extrusion that is about this big. And it's mounted on the bottom end that you can see, and it's mounted similarly on the top that you can't see unless you get on a ladder. If you catch the humidity and the weather just right, get on a ladder and look down the rig, and you can actually see a difference in the dew or condensation on the roof between the roof and that extrusion. And that'll tell you exactly where it is.
Huh.
So it is an aluminum extrusion about this thick, and it is hollow. It's got ribs in the center. So, you know, the side is the aluminum, styrofoam, and fiberboard, as is the top. And you've got that extrusion that puts the side and the top together. So,
There's actually a diagram on the Rialta Tech group that somebody uploaded. It's got the exact locations of the ribs and everything.
Yeah.
All the geometry.
all the geometry of that.
They got it from Winnebago. They gave permission to put it on there.
Right.
Winnebago's been good. If somebody asks for technical information like that, they've been real good about letting us have it. And I always ask them if it's okay to share it with other people, and they've always said yes. I don't mean they won't change their mind, but they don't make them anymore, so it's not like it's a super trade secret or
It's
something.
not a supported product much anymore.
And
Got to dream big, or don't dream at all.